The security alert hit my phone at 4:13 a.m. I was half asleep, fumbling for it on the nightstand, when the screen lit up with motion detection from the east field. I pulled up the feed, still foggy-eyed, then sat up so fast the pillow hit the floor. Two figures in dark clothes, one holding what looked like a machete, were moving between the vines like ghosts. 14 minutes later, every pumpkin I'd spent 6 months growing was split open, guts spilling across the soil like a crime scene. When I stepped outside, the air stank of diesel and sweet rot. 17 pumpkins gone. 25 grand in prize money. Another 50 in projected revenue, gone. And with it, the money I'd been saving for my wife's Parkinson's treatments. The truck that peeled off into the dark was a champagne gold SUV. I'd seen it plenty of times before, always parked at the edge of my property line, always watching. The woman who drove it, Evelyn Crane, had been trying to buy me out for 3 months. That morning, I realized she'd decided to take what she couldn't purchase. My name's Jack Mercer, 52, mechanical engineer by training, pumpkin farmer by accident. I got laid off when my company restructured, which is corporate speak for getting rid of anyone over 40 who knows what they're doing. My wife, Lily, was diagnosed with early-onset Parkinson's the same month my severance check cleared. Medical bills pile up fast. You think you've saved for retirement, but it turns out you've just built a nest egg for the healthcare system. We moved out to Lily's father's old property, 14 acres outside Maple Hollow, New York, a place so rural that the nearest coffee chain is 40 minutes away. The barn leaked, the tractor wheezed like an asthmatic dog, and the soil had been ignored for 2 decades. But it was land. Land you could touch, fix, and maybe coax back to life. I sent resumes into the void for months, and when nothing came back, I started growing things just to feel like I was building something again. Then one night YouTube suggested a video about competitive pumpkin growing. Atlantic giants the size of bathtubs, farmers hauling them to weigh-offs and winning real money. 20 grand for a first-place gourd. I figured, I've got land, I've got time, I've got an engineer's brain that loves variables and problem-solving. How hard could it be to grow something massive? The first year, 2022, I got 4 pumpkins to survive. My biggest weighed 420 pounds. I took third at the county fair and made $1,200. When they called my name, Lily cried, not because it was a fortune, but because for the first time in a long while, we'd actually won something. Year 2, I doubled down. Built hoop houses, ran drip irrigation, hand-pollinated flowers at sunrise, monitored soil moisture like it was rocket fuel. 8 pumpkins that season, $8,500 in prize money, and something better. We opened the patch to families in October. $5 admission, hayrides, kids painting little pumpkins while Lily ran the register from her wheelchair, laughing like she'd never been sick. We cleared 15 grand. Covered 2 months of meds. She named it Titan Patch. If you're growing giants, she said, own it. By the start of 2024, I went all in. 19,000 invested. Professional soil analysis, high-grade seeds from a guy in Maine who ships them like narcotics. The goal, 17 pumpkins ready for competition, 70,000 in projected winnings, another 25 from tourism. Enough to pay for a year of treatment and maybe fund a Parkinson's research grant. Then Evelyn showed up. She arrived in that gold SUV, windows tinted darker than the devil's sunglasses, and stepped out in heels that sank into the gravel. Mr. Mercer, she said with a smile that could slice drywall. I'm your new neighbor. She'd bought the 6 acres next door, called it Silvercrest Estate, and handed me a glossy brochure printed on paper thicker than my paycheck. Boutique wedding venue, luxury outdoor events. I'm offering $180 for your property, she said. More than it's worth, frankly. You'd be smart to take it. Not for sale, I told her. Her smile stiffened like wet cement. Mr. Mercer, what you're doing here isn't exactly compatible with a luxury venue. I'm growing pumpkins, I said. You're running weddings. Shouldn't be a problem. She leaned closer. I smelled designer perfume and entitlement. We'll see. 2 weeks later, the county inspector showed up, anonymous complaint about unapproved pesticides near a residential area. He was a good man. He'd seen my operation at the fair. He checked everything, found nothing. As he left, he said quietly, someone's trying to jam you up. 3 days after that, a certified letter. Her lawyer claimed my fence encroached 18 inches onto her property and demanded $5 grand in damages. I could have laughed if I hadn't been shaking. That fence had stood since 1987, built by Lily's father, surveyed and approved. Still, I hired a professional surveyor, money meant for Lily's next neurologist visit, and waited. For hours and $850 later, the new report showed my fence was 2.5 feet inside my boundary. But Evelyn's new driveway? 7 feet onto mine. I mailed her lawyer the evidence with time-stamped photos and a polite note asking whether she'd like to discuss compensation. The next day, her complaint was withdrawn. No apology. Just gone. I thought that was the end of it. Then she went nuclear on social media. Silvercrest weddings, her Instagram announced, complete with drone footage and captions dripping with passive aggression. Every shot framed my pumpkin patch in the background, making it look like part of her venue. Her captions were sugar-coated poison. Working hard to beautify our corner of town, though some neighbors need encouragement. Hashtags, #RusticCharm, #work-in-progress. Within days, people started whispering. At the hardware store, I got polite but puzzled looks. At the grocery aisle, a woman I didn't know said, "You're the pumpkin guy, right? Maybe clean things up a bit if you want the neighborhood to stay nice." Then she walked off. That night, my daughter Grace called from Boston. She's 28, a graphic designer with more energy than a solar flare. "Dad," she said, "she's destroying your reputation." "I grow pumpkins, not politics." "Doesn't matter," she said. "She's loud. You're invisible. We're fixing this." That weekend she showed up with a camera, a laptop, and enough caffeine to power a spaceship. We filmed time-lapse, tutorials, family moments, Lily laughing with the kids, me explaining soil chemistry. We launched Titan Patch, Growing Hope. Half of all proceeds to Parkinson's research. Within 3 weeks, we had 1,200 followers. Locals commented, pumpkin growers shared. Even the paper ran a story. Local engineer turns pumpkins into hope. For 72 hours, I thought we'd beaten her. Then her only wedding booking canceled, citing aesthetic concerns about the neighboring property. That's when she snapped. A week later, I got another letter. She'd filed a complaint with the town zoning board, claiming I was running an illegal commercial operation in a residential zone. Traffic congestion, safety hazards, no proper permits. The hearing was set for 2 weeks later. The basement of town hall smelled like burnt coffee and old carpet. Evelyn sat front row in a white suit, leather folder on her lap, smiling for the local reporter. I sat in the back beside Lily, wearing my best flannel. "Mr. Mercer," the chairman said, "do you have commercial permits?" "I have liability insurance and agricultural certification," I said. "Commercial farm license?" "I operate as agricultural use. This land's been farmland for 40 years. He sighed. "You have 30 days to provide documentation. Cease all commercial activity until then." 30 days. October season gone. Everything I'd worked for done. I barely slept that night. Around 3 a.m., I started digging through state statutes online, scrolling till my eyes blurred. Then I found it. Right to farm protection under New York law. If a property is part of an agricultural district, it's exempt from local zoning restrictions. I checked the registry. My address, enrolled in 1994. Never removed. I filed the paperwork that same afternoon. $35 and a prayer. 6 days later, I got the official confirmation letter. At the next meeting, I walked in holding that document like a golden ticket. The chairman read it, sighed, and said, "Mr. Mercer's farm is exempt from local zoning." Case closed. Evelyn's face drained of color. The local paper headline read, "Pumpkin Farmer Beats Zoning Battle." Comments online were merciless. "She's been here 6 months and thinks she runs the town." For a week, peace. Then one morning, I found 3 pumpkins rotting at the base. Perfect circular holes in the vines. Too precise for insects. Someone had punctured them with a syringe. I checked my cameras, cheap trail cams I'd put up after the fence fight. The footage was grainy, black and white. A figure in dark clothes reaching through the fence with something long and thin, working methodically. Couldn't see a face. Couldn't see plates. The sheriff's deputy squinted at the footage. "They stayed roadside," he said. "Technically not trespassing. They destroyed my crops." "I know, sir. But without clear ID, my hands are tied. Document it. If it happens again, we'll have a pattern." So I did what any stubborn engineer would do. I upgraded everything. 8 HD night vision cameras. Motion sensor floodlights bright enough to wake the next county. $1,800 on a credit card I'd sworn never to use again. 2 quiet weeks passed. Then an insurance inspector showed up, clipboard in hand. "Complaint filed," he said, "alleging your operations of fire hazard, attracts rodents, and that, your pumpkins pose rollover risks." He walked the property for an hour, shaking his head. "Sir, this place is immaculate. Whoever filed this was fishing for violations. You passed every metric." But a month later, my renewal notice came with an 18% premium hike. Complaint activity equals risk. By then I'd lost 23 grand from sabotage, another 400 a year in premiums. And she still hadn't broken a single law. Then one night, headlights rolled up my driveway. Hank, the diner owner, stepped out with a thermos. Behind him, 3 trucks. The pastor, the hardware store guy, a couple of farmers. "We're doing pumpkin patrol," Hank said. "You're not fighting this alone." They set up lawn chairs, drank tar-black coffee, and watched my cameras. For the first time in months, I slept. And then, October 15th, 3:47 a.m., the floodlights snapped on. 2 figures in ski masks cut my gate, marched straight to the pumpkins, and in 14 minutes destroyed half a year of work. The footage was crystal clear, and parked 30 feet away, unmistakable under the floodlights, was a champagne gold Lincoln Navigator. The sheriff arrived at dawn. We all knew whose car it was. "We can't prove she was driving," he said. "Masks, mud on the plates, it won't stick." I just nodded. I was too numb to argue. Grace wanted to sue. "We'll crowdfund. We'll make her famous for all the wrong reasons." But lawsuits cost money, and judgments against broke people don't pay bills. Then my brother-in-law, Ray, showed up for Lily's birthday. He works in commercial real estate finance. "Between bites of cake nobody could eat," he said. "Saw something weird. Evelyn's property popped up on a foreclosure watch list." He pulled up public records. She'd taken a $600,000 bridge loan from a private lender called Apex Horizon Capital. 12-month term, 14% interest, balloon payment due November 15th. "She's cooked," he said. "She can't refinance. 2 bookings, 0 revenue. She's gonna default." Then he showed me the appraisal notes. Property value increases 30% with acquisition of adjacent 14-acre parcel, Mercer Farm. That's when it clicked. My refusal to sell had tanked her property's value and killed her refinancing chances. She wasn't just angry, she was desperate. Ray dug deeper. Apex Horizon had foreclosed on 43 properties in upstate New York alone. Same pattern every time. Predatory loans to people chasing big dreams, retirees, single women, veterans, high interest, impossible timelines, balloon payments designed to fail. They'd swoop in, foreclose, and flip the land for 30 to 40% profit. Legal, evil, efficient. I realized Evelyn wasn't the architect of my misery. She was the weapon. I brought everything to a local legal aid attorney named Lucinda Park, smart, mid-30s, sharp enough to cut through marble. She looked over the files and said, "You could sue Evelyn for damages, but she's judgment-proof. The real case is against Apex. If we can prove they encouraged or coerced her to sabotage you." We needed proof, so we baited the hook. Through Lucinda's office, we sent Evelyn a letter. I'd buy her property for $690,000, enough to clear her debt and give her 6 grand cushion. Close by November 10th. All she had to do was sign and walk away. The stated reason, expansion of Titan Patch. The real reason, to see how desperate she was and what she'd reveal. While we waited, Lucinda filed a Freedom of Information request to the State Attorney General. The results came back 3 weeks later, 12 complaints against Apex Horizon, 2 quiet settlements. Not enough to convict, but enough to paint a pattern. Then she reminded me, New York's a one-party consent state. If you're in the conversation, you can record it. Perfect. A week later, Evelyn flipped the script and filed for a restraining order, claimed my cameras invaded her privacy, that my volunteers were harassing her. Lucinda grinned. She just gave us discovery rights. We can subpoena her communications with Apex. The hearing was pure theater. Evelyn arrived dressed like she was auditioning for sainthood. Her lawyer waved photos of my floodlights and Facebook comments. Lucinda dismantled everything: chronology, motive, evidence of prior harassment. The judge, clearly fed up, denied the order and said, "This court will not be weaponized for a property dispute." Afterward, I found Evelyn alone in the hallway. I hit record on my phone. "You don't have to keep fighting," I said. My offer's real. You're drowning, and I'm trying to throw you a rope. She turned, and for the first time, she didn't look angry, just hollow. You think I want this? She whispered. I have $11,000 and $684,000 in debt. My ex took everything. This venue was supposed to be my comeback. Then take the deal. She laughed, brittle as glass. I can't. They won't let me. Who? She froze. Forget I said anything. Then she walked away, heels echoing like gunshots. Lucinda listened to the recording twice. Not enough for court, she said. But it proves external pressure. We need to confront Apex directly. So I took the train to Manhattan. Their office sat on the 45th floor, all glass and silence. The receptionist looked at me like I'd wandered in from a cornfield. I'm here to see Marcus Renfield, I said, about a loan in Maple Hollow. After 20 minutes of waiting in a chair designed to punish patience, a woman in a tailored suit led me into his office. Renfield looked like every Wall Street villain rolled into one, polished, unbothered, perfectly groomed. Mr. Mercer, he said, not standing. You've come a long way for a loan that isn't yours. I'm here to buy it out. $690. Full repayment. He actually laughed. We don't sell loans midterm, even if the borrower's about to default. Especially then. Foreclosure's more profitable. That's when I realized he'd said it out loud. What if, I asked, you coached her to sabotage my property to force a sale? He smiled. That's a serious accusation. I have her on tape saying you control her. I have 43 victims showing the same pattern. And I have a reporter who loves David versus Goliath stories. He leaned forward, eyes cold. You have nothing actionable. If you defame my company, I'll bury you in lawsuits till your grandchildren go broke. Maybe, I said, standing. But I can afford to be loud. I left with no deal, but confirmation that Apex Horizon was exactly the monster I thought. When I got home, 50 people were waiting at my barn. Hank, the pastor, Doreen from the clerk's office, even the hardware store owner. We spread the documents on folding tables and planned an ambush, not violent, but public. The annual Harvest Festival was 5 days away. 2,000 locals, local news coverage, county officials attending. We'd build a display exposing Apex Horizon, names, loan terms, foreclosure maps, victim stories. If we made enough noise, the state would have to investigate. The night before the festival, my phone buzzed again. Motion alert, 3:47 a.m. 2 figures, same masks, same SUV. 14 minutes later, my pumpkins were gone. Again. I didn't even shout this time. I just watched the footage, saved it, and whispered, "Thank you for the ending." The morning of the festival was crisp and golden, the kind of day that smells like firewood and cider. We set up the booth, giant posters showing Apex's foreclosure patterns, QR codes to public records, stills from the security footage. Across the top, protect Maple Hollow from predatory lenders. People stopped, read, whispered. Then they called others over. That's the company that took my aunt's farm. They did the same thing to a guy in Larksville. The county supervisor took photos. This needs to go to the attorney general. Then Evelyn appeared, walking through the crowd with her phone out, trying to look calm. When she saw the display, she froze. 50 people watching. She marched up, trembling with fury. This is defamation. You're making me look like a criminal. Everything here's documented, I said. Public record. You're ruining me. You ruined yourself. October 15th, 3:47 a.m. Your car, your driveway mud, your headlights. But you're not the villain here, Evelyn. You're a victim. They used you. Her face crumpled. They said if I could get you to sell, they'd refinance me, she whispered. They said you were the reason my property wasn't worth anything. The crowd gasped. And then, as if summoned, a black sedan pulled up. Out stepped Marcus Renfield, immaculate suit, Manhattan arrogance intact. Enough, he said. Ms. Crane, stop talking. He turned to me. Take this display down, or I'll see you in court. The TV crew's camera swung toward him. Sir, the reporter said, are you with Apex Horizon? Care to comment on allegations of predatory lending? We're a legitimate firm, he said smoothly. These accusations are baseless. I pulled out my phone. Then explain why you told me foreclosure is more profitable than repayment. His jaw tightened. I never said that. Good thing I recorded it. I hadn't, but he didn't know that. The county supervisor stepped in. Mr. Renfield, we're filing a complaint with the state attorney general today. 14 foreclosures in this county alone. You'll have a chance to explain everything under oath. Doreen appeared with a folder. Already submitted, she said, waving the certified receipt. Renfield looked around, at the crowd, the cameras, the witnesses. The confidence drained from his face. What do you want? He muttered. She walks away clean, I said. Forgive the loan, or sell it to me for $690. No deficiency judgment. Impossible. Then enjoy your press coverage. Predatory lender drives woman to vandalism. It'll trend by dinner. He hesitated, calculating the PR damage. Finally, he exhaled. Fine. Sale closes in 2 weeks. She signs a release. I looked at Evelyn. And you confess to the vandalism. Full restitution. She nodded, tears streaking her makeup. I'm sorry, she whispered. The sheriff stepped forward from the crowd. Ms. Crane, you're under arrest for criminal mischief and trespass. Given the circumstances, I'll recommend probation and community service. The crowd erupted in applause. Renfield got back into his car without a word. Evelyn was led away quietly, still crying. The property sale closed November 8th. I suddenly owned 20 acres instead of 14. Evelyn's debt cleared, and she moved to Rochester to start over. She pled guilty, did 200 hours at the county food bank, paid $70,000 in restitution, money I used to rebuild the farm, and set aside an emergency fund I swore never to touch again. The state attorney general opened an investigation that ended with a $2.4 million settlement against Apex Horizon and new laws restricting private bridge loans. By spring, the new Titan patch was bigger than ever. We hosted a rebuild day. Over 100 volunteers showed up with tools, soil, and laughter. The smell of mulch and coffee filled the air while Lily directed traffic from her wheelchair like a general. The following year, our first Titan Harvest Festival drew 3,000 visitors. We raised $40,000 for Parkinson's research, legal aid, and young farmers. The centerpiece pavilion we built on Evelyn's old land? We named it the Evelyn Crane Redemption Pavilion. Grace asked why. I told her, because forgiveness is harder than revenge, and more important. 6 months later, Evelyn mailed a letter. She apologized, explained the mess her life had been, enclosed a $5,000 check for Lily's research fund, and ended with, I hope one day you can forgive me. I'm still learning to forgive myself. I framed it and hung it in my barn, not to remember the fight, but to remember that even broken people can grow again. Last October, my biggest pumpkin hit 1,300 pounds, third place at the state championship. When a reporter asked if I regretted not selling, I said, not for a second, because this, I pointed at the festival crowd, at the kids laughing, at the volunteers who'd become family. This is what happens when people choose community over greed. So if you've ever been bullied by a corporation, an HOA, or just someone who thought money made them invincible, don't fight alone. Document everything. Find your people. And when you finally stand up, make enough noise that the world can't ignore you. Where are you watching from? Drop your state in the comments. And tell me, if someone tried to destroy what you built, what would you do? Because sometimes the only way to grow something strong is to survive the storm first.